This presentation will talk you through all the steps required to set up your own borders, title blocks and all the other settings that go together to make a complete orthographic template. When you first open up a new orthographic file, the first thing you'll notice is there are half a dozen preset orthographic files. Just click on the metric tab and you'll see American settings, Japanese settings, British settings. The one that's closest to what we're after is the ISO setting. Open up a new ISO file. Upon opening the ISO file, you notice a default border and a default title block. We're going to get rid of these by going into the browser and right click firstly on the ISO icon and select delete. Away goes the title block. Go back into the browser, right click on default border and delete, and away goes the border. We now have an empty screen. Expand the folder for drawing resources and right click on borders and select define new border. Up comes all the sketch tools that are recognisable from before, and we're going to create our new default border using the 2-point rectangle tool as we did previously. Just click top left, drag, click again, bottom right. Create that rectangle. That's our border. While we're at it, hunt for the midpoint on that line, click and click on the right hand side, and we've created a rectangle that's going to represent our title block. I'm going to find the midpoint here and drag down to the midpoint there, click again, snap to that corner, snap to that junction. I'll settle for that as a combined border and title box. You can use the general dimension tool like before to set particular sizes, etc. I'll just demonstrate with this one size and we'll move on. Once you're happy with your new border and title box, right click and done. No more dimensions. Right click again, save border. Give your new border a particular name that's recognisable to you, and when you save that, everything appears to have gone away, but in fact when you go back into the browser and expand the borders folder, you'll see your new border in there. Double click on it and up comes your folder. Now the ISO settings that we have are close to what we're after but not exactly right, so we're going to go into Format and Styles Editor and bring up the Styles Editor dialog box. We're going to click on Default Standards and select New, and we're going to give a name to this new set of standards that we're going to define. Once you give it a name and say OK, your name is added to the list, but it's not bold yet. Double click on it to make this new set of settings the active set, and any changes that we now apply from now on will apply to our new set. First thing to change is third angle and period, and save those two settings. We can also now make a couple of necessary changes to dimensions. Double click on ISO here, and we want to change the level of precision to 0. We also want to change to a period for a decimal marker in our dimensions. Same goes for angular. Let's change the precision to 0. Save those changes. In the text tab, we want to make sure that we're using the correct font for note text. In display, here's an important change. This B setting, we want to create a small gap by changing from 0 to 2 millimeters. Create a small gap with the dimensions as shown here. Now, these are some of the main changes you'll want to make. There are others, but if you make those changes alone, you'll certainly come up with an acceptable result. Now that we have these changes defined, it would be sensible to save this document as a template for future use. Go into File and Save Copy As. Navigate to the C drive and go to Program Files. Within Program Files, look for Autodesk and then Inventor, and then look for Templates and put this particular document in the metric folder. Give it a name, something recognisable, and when you say save, this template with all those settings that you've just created will be available for future use. This will save you having to recreate it each time. Let's prove that it's there. File, New, Metric tab, and we now have 7 rather than 6 default orthographics, one of them the one that you just set up. We're now able to bring in the base view for our set of orthographics, the view from which all other views will be projected. When we click on base view, because I already have the alloy wheel file running, I'm offered this view as my base view. It happens to be an elevation. Here's the file in the window here. If it wasn't already showing, I could navigate using that folder to open the file. I want to change the name of this particular view to elevation, and I'm going to check the box to make the title visible. Really all I need to do now, oh yeah, I can change from showing detail or rendered image using that window. This window here allows me to make my base view either that view, that view, that view, or any of the others on the list. Front, left, right, back, etc. I'm happy with what the original was, so I'll settle for that. And I simply need to click to place the view. Left click when I think I've got the view in the right position. No matter if I don't get it right first time, I can easily reposition. I'm going to drag the title, it defaults to going to the top, I'm going to drag it down to the bottom. Carefully select it and drag it. If I wanted to reposition, I would hover to the extents. When the row of red dots comes up, click, drag, carefully reposition, click again. Placement of the rest of the views is relatively straightforward. I'm going to put an elevation here, an isometric there, and a plan above by going to projected views, and then I simply have to hover over the elevation, click and drag into position. When I'm in position, I'm going to left click. All that I get currently is a rectangle, that's okay. Then I'm going to drag to the right, left click. At this stage again I'll just get a rectangle. Then I'm going to drag up and to the right, I'm going to left click, and now that I've repositioned all my views, I'm going to right click, create, and the views will automatically generate themselves. Minus titles, etc. But that's a straightforward process. I simply have to pick each view in turn, hover to the extents and double click on the red dotted lines and make my changes in the dialog box. Give it a title, make the title visible, say OK, and carefully position the title. I can do that for the other views. Left click, edit the title, end elevation, block capitals of course. Check the dialog box to make it visible, say OK, reposition. Isometric view next, left click. For this isometric view I think I'm going to make it slightly smaller. Take the drop down arrow here, here are all the scales available to me. If I don't fancy any of them in particular, I think I'm just going to edit the box and type in 0.8. I don't want to make the scale visible. I do want the title of isometric, so I'll type in isometric and check the visible box. I think I'll go for a rendered view this time for my isometric and say OK. The view gets smaller, rendered, and incorporates a title. Drag the title to an appropriate position and reposition the view. I want to up and out the road to give me some space for my next view. Very slightly different procedure here to create the sectional view. I've made a wee space. I'm going to click on sectional view. I'm going to left click to say this is the view which is going to incorporate the cutting plane line. I'm going to left click and left click again, making sure that I get a perfectly vertical line. Right click on create and drag to the side. Left click when I think I've got the right position, and there is my sectional view created. Really neat feature is that if I dynamically drag the cutting plane line, and as soon as I reposition the line, the sectional view automatically updates itself to take account of the new position. Let's put it back where it was, that was fine at that. Bit of a clash between the sectional view and isometric view, I'll do something about that shortly. Don't really want that scale visible. I'm happy with everything else. Say OK at that and drag the title down out the way. Probably a good idea at this stage to make that isometric view slightly smaller. Double click on the extents there to bring up the dialog box, and change that scale from 0.8, let's go for 0.7, just about squeeze in at 0.7 I think. That's ideal.